Well, Indonesia's state budget deficit has reduced significantly to 3.63% of the GDP in November 2021, while Indonesia's state revenues increased by 19% compared to the year before, as this is all signaling a steady economic recovery in Indonesia, especially in 2021. Now, the drop in state budget deficit and increase in state revenues in the month of November marks a good achievement in Indonesia's efforts towards economic recovery. Now, in terms of trade, Indonesia has recorded a trade surplus for 19 consecutive months and achieved a total trade surplus of $34.32 billion from January to November 2021. Now, meanwhile, in November 2021 as well, Indonesia's total state revenue reached 1,669.4 trillion, marking a 19.4% increase in state revenue compared to the year before. Furthermore, Indonesia has so far reached 97.5% of their state revenue target for 2021. Indonesia also reaped total tax revenue of 1,082.6 trillion rupiah in November 2021, which is a 17% increase compared to the year before. Oil and gas tax revenues increased by 57%. Non-oil and gas tax revenues rose by 12.6%, while value-added tax revenues rose by 19.8%. Now, going back, as per November 2021, Indonesia's state budget deficit was valued at 611 trillion rupiah, which is 3.63% of the GDP. This marks a significant drop in deficit compared to the year before, when the state budget deficit was 5.7% of the GDP during that same period. And now, to help us look back at how Indonesia's economy performed in 2021 and also to look ahead to 2022, we are joined by Bima Yudhistira, the director of the Center of Economic and Law Studies, or CELIOS. Hi, Bima. Thank you so much for joining us today on Jakarta Movers and Shakers again.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so as we saw just now, there are plenty of positives towards the end of the year. State revenue is up 19%. Trade surplus, we've had that for 19 months in a row. Tax revenue also exceeded targets. Would you say that Indonesia's economy recovered well in 2021?
If we see some data, for example, about the tax revenue itself, the tax revenue may increase more than 100% from the target. But let's just look from the number before the pandemic, because what happened right now is the government needs some tax revenue, and there is a momentum of a commodity bonanza happening right now. So it helps a lot tax revenue. So it's similar like what happened in 2008. During that time, there is a financial crisis, subprime mortgage crisis, but the tax revenue also good in 2008. Why? Because at the time, we also happening the commodity booms. So oil price at the times above $99 per barrel, and also price of coal and CPO also increased. So what I'm going to say that even though the tax revenue realization is good and some macroeconomic indicator also happen to be good, increase from previous quarter, for instance, but we can see that the economic recovery is still facing some hardship, facing some challenges, especially coming from the domestic itself. For instance, the inflation. And also next year, perhaps the tax revenue will be more aggressive. And it's also impacting both the tax revenue itself and also impacting the consumption of the household.
Okay, so you're saying there are still some issues that occurred in 2021, but unemployment has gone down in 2021. As of August, it was down around 6% compared to the year before. So in your opinion, in terms of social welfare, poverty, unemployment, in 2021, did it really improve that much? Or what is your opinion on that?
I will say that there is an improvement, of course, because the economic will be relaxed in the third quarters and the fourth quarters. As we can see here from the recent data in August from the BPS, So there are still 21.3 million people or worker affected by the COVID-19, or more or less 10% from the total workforce, still suffering from the COVID-19 impact. Either they lost their job or they cut the time of the hours being paid by the employers, for instance. So, but the good news is, even though 21 point something workers still affected by the COVID-19, but the good news, the absorption in the industrial sectors can be seen increase 1.2 million people compared to the last year. So if we compare August data 2021 compared to the last year's in the same month, there is some improvement in the industry absorption because there is a growing demand from the export and also increasing number of the investment being realized to starting the industrial process and also increasing number of the demand from the domestic, of course, in terms of the textile and then pulp and papers, some of the industrial materials. So this is also impacting the labor absorption. That's a good thing. But on the other side, we look from the labor absorption in the agriculture sectors, which is reverse compared with the industrial sectors. Industrial sectors add up 1.2 million people, but in the agriculture sectors, there is a decrease more than 1 million worker also. So what going on right now is some employee which is currently working in the agriculture sectors, they're moving to industrial sectors to get better salaries, to get better chance of work when the economy begin to recover. So there's like a still mix of the benefit from the relaxed economy or reopening economy between the industrial sectors and the agriculture or farming sectors in Indonesia.
Okay, so let's just talk about that a little bit. So people are moving from the agricultural sector to the industrial sector because more opportunities are there. You said there's more investment. So next year, do you think the agricultural sector will be affected by this, or what's your opinion?
Yeah, I totally agree that the next years there will be a new challenge, like I said before, about the inflation in the food price. This also increasing number of challenge in the food production sectors in Indonesia, while also we facing La Nina extreme weathers that also impacting number of the productions in some areas, yeah, especially in Java. So we need to take care about how many workers will be left the agriculture sectors, moving to the other sectors, to the services, construction, and also industrial sectors. So there will be a problem of the shortage of workers in the agricultural sectors. So this is also need to be looked out by the government.
Okay, I was going to ask you this later, but since we're talking about it already, let's talk about it now. Inflation next year, some people are kind of worried about it. You're saying that there are more people more workers moving away from the agricultural sector. So next year, do you see a problem with inflation, increased prices in Indonesia, especially for foodstuffs?
We see from the recent data shows that the CPO increase also impacting the cooking oil increase in Indonesia. Also, we see some eggs, commodities, chicken begin to increase also. And the surge price, some of the commodities in some of area is very, very fantastic, more than 20 to 30% compared with the last 3 months. So this price increase or inflation is very real challenge facing in the economic recovery. So the increase of the food price will certainly push inflation higher if we look in the December this year. So we estimate the inflation in December 2021 itself is between 0.5 to 0.6%, higher from the November, which is only 0.3%, and then compared with the December last year's, with only 0.45%. The price of basic necessities such as cooking oil will continue to increase along with the increase in the CPO in the next years. So we also predict there is imported inflation because of the pressure from the tapering off will impacting volatility of currency. And as a result, product that imported or raw materials that imported from abroad will have higher price. And the government seems like immediately carry out some response how to tackle the imported inflation, also how to stabilize the price in the domestic market with the many interventions. And then we need to make sure that, for instance, regarding the crude palm oil, which is right now the price in the international market is relatively good, higher price compared with the last 3 or 4 years ago. So this time the government need to talk with the business owner of the CPO plantation, palm oil plantation, to not over export. So they need to look out the domestic market demand, especially for the cooking oil industries. So this is need the government intervention to make price stability, especially in the next years. I think before the Ramadan,
Okay.
4 months before the Ramadan, we still have time
Okay.
to maintain the price stability.
Okay, so your projection, some concerns about inflation in Indonesia for 2022, but we'll discuss more on the outlook of Indonesia's economic performance next year, right after the break. Stay back, and we are still with Bima Yudhistira, the director of the Center of Economic and Law Studies, or CELIOS, talking about Indonesia's economic performance in 2021. Now, Bima, I want to talk to you about investments now. From the first to third quarter, Indonesia has reached around 73% of its investment realization target. Now, studies are showing that this positive investment this positive investment levels in 2021 has created substantial amount of jobs this year. What is your take on this? Do you think investments were good this year in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think the prospect of the investment is quite bright. Yeah, I think this year's and the next year's. First one, some investors sees that the delay of the investment during the pandemic, they began to realize that kind of the investment. They began to searching for land, for acquiring land, for a factory or manufacturing set up, and then they began to increase new investment in the digital economy also. That's helped Indonesian economy, job, employment, better performance in these years. And we also see that the government is very serious in terms of the policy reforms and opening new industrial parks. Especially we see some of the industrial park will be operate next years, some in the central Java, many in the outer island of the Java, like in the Sulawesi and then Maluku, related to the resources industry, like a nickel, for instance, nickel industries. So many factors affecting investment next years, and also the government investment from the infrastructure project cooperate with some of the foreign investors will be realized. I think the prospect of the investment is increasing. But the big question is, we are not looking only with the nominal or realization of the investment in terms of the US dollar value or in the rupiah value. We are also concerned about the quality of the investment. We see here that the number of the investment increased, but the quality of the workers. It means that $1 invest in Indonesia should bring more workers to be absorbed. But we see what happened during the pandemic and previously in the last 3 or 4 years ago. Number of the investment increased, number of the project increased, but number of the employment absorption in the construction sectors, in the industrial sectors, is not that big compared in the last 15 years or after the reformasi era. After the 1998 financial crisis, we compare it to today, the situation is a little bit different in terms of the quality of investment. So we recommend the government to pick and to be selective. Not all investment must be facilitated by the government, by the local government, or give a lot of the incentive, but we must to be selective. Investment that export-oriented or have a great value-added and technological transfers and also labor absorption is good. We need to support that kind of the investment in the future.
All right, so you're saying investment is going up, it's good, but the labor absorption is not meeting that increased investment. Regarding the reasons for this, is it because of the type of investment, or is it because some of those investments are they using foreign workers, or are workers not skilled enough to meet those jobs? What is the reason for that?
The first reason is removing investment more like a technological advanced investment in the digital economy, which is, we know digital economy help a lot of the small medium enterprise, creating new kind of a skill, but services industry in general, digital economy is part of the services industry, not absorb as many as industrial or manufacturing sectors or agriculture sectors. That's the fact. So when we're moving more investment in the digital economy, the number of the labor absorption may not big or attract many new labor market compared with the other sectors. And the second one is influence of the investment policy, which attract more foreign workers in some of the investment outside Java, especially. This is also impacting quality of the investment. But we cannot say that all of this project is bad, or some of the project is not proper to invest in Indonesia. We cannot say like that, but we need to ensure that even though we need foreign workers in Indonesia, we need a skill transfer and we need some midterm strategy that in the long term, we don't depend on the foreign workers that much as happened as today.
All right, so there needs to be an increase in the skills of Indonesian workers as well. Now, Bima, we're kind of running out of time, so we're going to talk more about the outlook in 2022. As we know right now, a lingering factor is the Omicron variant. Now, some weeks ago, we didn't know much about it, but now there's more studies about it saying it leads to less hospitalization and less severe illness than other variants. In your opinion, what is kind of the impact of the Omicron variant and the pandemic overall next year in 2022 in terms of Indonesia's economy?
We need to be more cautious, of course, but I'm more optimistic related to the Omicron challenge or Omicron impact. The first one, yes, there is a number of surge not only in Indonesia, but in our trading partner like US and European countries, for instance. But Indonesian government also learned a lot from the Delta variant previously, so we may have another advanced plan for tracing, for testings, and also to implement more vaccinations to Indonesian citizens. So Omicron variant may be a challenge, but that kind of a challenge may be less threatening compared with the Delta variants. So overall, the projection of the economic growth in 2022 is still strong enough to around 4.5 to 5% year on year or annually. So we see some of the economic recovery going on, and export, investment, and government expenditures, also household consumption. That's all the major factors that the government need to take care of, and also this need a lot of support, especially when next year we held a G20 meetings, recover stronger, recover together. Therefore, we need to recover faster, but also recover more solid. Therefore, the government stimulus still needed. And related to the Omicron case, we need to expand the funding or the fiscal budget in the health sector, for instance, and the vaccination. So, of course, there is a challenge for new pandemic variants, but as long as the government response is on the track, so we don't need to be worried too much, and we see more opportunity in the year ahead.
All right, as you just said, we are seeing more opportunity in the year ahead. We all hope so as well. Bima Yudhistira, the Director of the Center of Economic and Law Studies, or CELIOS, thank you so much for joining us. Have a happy new year. Thanks so much.
Thank you.